Huntsville, Texas, the Walls Unit. Behind these thick concrete walls lies the busiest execution chamber in the United States. Since 1976, Texas has executed more people than any other state. Over 580 souls have taken their final steps down this corridor. The air here always carries an indescribable heaviness, the smell of bleach mixed with suffocating silence. In their final hours, death row inmates typically have two reactions. Either they turn to religion, praying for redemption, or they succumb to a state of numbness, staring into the void with empty eyes. But what makes this story different isn't the numbers or the execution chamber. That's the age. Most of those awaiting the death penalty are elderly criminals, past middle age, with a lifetime of crime behind them. But Michael Perry was only 19 years old when he committed the crime, a teenager who hadn't fully matured psychologically and didn't fully understand the consequences of his actions. According to brain research, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and behavior control, is not fully developed in people under 25. So can society execute someone whose brain hasn't fully developed? That's a question with no simple answer. Some people kill for money, others kill out of hatred or passion, but Michael Perry killed 3 innocent people for something most of us take for granted every day: cars. On October 24, 2001, 2 teenagers decided they needed better transportation. What happened next shocked even seasoned detectives. In less than 24 hours, Michael Perry and his friend Jason Burkett turned a quiet Texas community into a crime scene that still haunts investigators to this day. The 3 victims, a 50-year-old nurse, her 16-year-old son, and the boy's 18-year-old best friend, all died because 2 young men wanted to drive something more luxurious. But this is the twist that makes this case even more terrifying. Both murderers were arrested. They both confessed. They were both convicted of the same crime. But only one person has to die for what they did together. The other person is still alive in prison today, eligible for parole in 2041. How does a judge decide which teenagers live and who must die? What happened in that courtroom that saved a murderer while determining the fate of the other? Michael Perry never had a fair start in life. His teenage mother gave birth to him and then left. And though his adoptive parents loved him deeply, they had no idea what they were getting into. By the time he was in 1st grade, doctors diagnosed Michael with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The boy's mind couldn't focus, he couldn't sit still. But that was just the beginning. In 7th grade, the diagnosis worsened: oppositional defiant disorder. By 8th grade, it was a behavioral disorder. Each label is just a fancy way of saying the same thing. Michael is becoming dangerous. The foster parents tried everything: counseling, therapy, mental hospitals. Nothing works. Michael stole his mother's jewelry and tried to sell it. He crashed the family van into the mailbox. He broke into the neighbor's restaurant just to destroy everything, tearing down wallpaper and cutting decorative wood. When regular schools couldn't control him, his desperate parents sent him to Boys Town in Nebraska, a reform school for troubled children. But even there, Michael's shadow still loomed. After just 3 months, he made a threat that sent shivers down everyone's spines. "You work here. I don't understand how people like me would rape or kill your children." They immediately transferred him to a locked detention area for 4 months. But Michael didn't get better. He's getting worse. Michael's parents made a final attempt to save their child. They sent him to Casa by the Sea, a private treatment center in Mexico for American children with serious problems. Michael graduated from high school there, but as soon as he turned 18, he dropped out of the program and never went back. What happened next was a nightmare. Michael became homeless on the streets of San Diego. Without personal identification, work skills, or survival instincts, he made choices that would haunt him forever. An elderly man offered him shelter in exchange for sexual favors. Michael later admitted, "If I had to choose between starving to death or selling myself, I would sell myself." Drugs became his escape. He stole prescription drugs and sold them to feed his addiction. When his foster parents offered to let him come home if he found a job, Michael chose the streets. Jason Burkett's childhood was pure horror from day one. His mother used methamphetamine during pregnancy, damaging the baby's brain before it was born. After giving birth, she neglected her children, often leaving the eldest to raise the younger ones. But the real demon in Jason's life was his father, Delbert Burkett. Delbert is a professional criminal who turned the house into a battlefield. Jason witnessed his father frequently hitting his mother, shooting her with an air gun, and at least once he saw his father rape her. Abuse is not limited to mothers. Delbert often hit Jason and his siblings. The older children, traumatized by their own injuries, passed the violence down to Jason. The family lives on food stamps and fear. Nevertheless, Jason still admires his father. That's the level of distortion in your world. The man who destroyed your family is still your hero. In the months leading up to October 2001, Michael Perry and Jason Burkett found each other. Two broken 19-year-olds with nothing to lose and wanting to prove everything. They bonded over drugs, crime, and a shared anger toward the world. In May 2001, police arrested Michael for shooting at a house. He had simply fired bullets into someone's home for no reason. By October 2nd, he was arrested again for attempting to use a forged prescription to obtain 100 Xanax pills. He's clearly desperate for drugs and money. Jason faces his own demons. Years of witnessing his father's violence taught him that taking what he wanted was normal. Hurting others to get it is just a part of life. Together, they form a dangerous combination. Michael has a reckless temper. Jason learned that violence is the solution to every problem. Both are broke, both are addicted, and both are out of options. That's when they started talking about cars. Beautiful cars, the kind that wealthy people drive around the affluent neighborhoods near Lake Conroe. Sandra Stotler built a good life for herself and her son. At the age of 50, she works as a nurse at Conroe Regional Medical Center, helping patients get better every day. She's the type of person who dedicates her life to caring for others. Sandra lives in the Bentwater subdivision near Lake Conroe, one of the gated communities where people move to feel safe. Beautiful houses, well-maintained lawns, and a neighborhood where children can ride their bikes without their parents worrying. Sandra worked hard to give her 16-year-old son Adam this kind of life. Adam Stotler is a typical teenager. You have friends, go to school, and are close to your mother. Like most children his age, he loves cars. Mom bought you a white Isuzu Rodeo. Not too fancy, but it's a reliable vehicle for a responsible boy. Sandra herself drives a red Camaro. Not the latest model, but sporty and eye-catching. For Sandra, it was just her car. For Michael Perry and Jason Burkett, it represented everything they wanted, but couldn't have. Jeremy Richardson is 18 years old and Adam's best friend. You're the kind of kid who's always welcome at the Stotler house. Sandra treated him like a second son, and Jeremy admired Adam like a brother. On October 24th, Jeremy was just playing with his best friend, probably planning the weekend like any teenager. Maybe they'll go to the movies, drive around town, or just play games. It's a normal teenage thing. Jeremy didn't know that two strangers had been following the Stotler house. You don't know that someone decided your friend's family had too much and needed to be robbed. You can't imagine that wanting to help someone get into trouble will cost you your life. For the next 2 days, Michael Perry thought he had gotten away with the triple murder. He drove Sandra's stolen red Camaro as if it were his own, with a hint of pride in what he had accomplished. But on October 26th, luck ran out. A police officer spotted him violating traffic laws in his red Camaro. When the police officer tried to stop the car, Michael panicked and led the police on a high-speed chase through the streets. The chase ended when Michael crashed his car and tried to escape on foot. The police quickly arrested him, and when they searched his pockets, they found Adam Stotler's wallet. Michael was so arrogant that he gave the police the name Adam when he was arrested. He was registered in prison under the name Adam Stotler and was released on bail by court order. The next day, October 27th, a horrifying discovery changed everything. Someone found Sandra Stotler's body floating on Crater Lake. The nurse who dedicated her life to helping others is now a victim of murder. Police immediately began searching for her son, Adam, and the missing vehicles. They didn't know that the person they were looking for had died in the forest, and the killer had been caught under his name. On October 29th, Michael's paranoia reached a breaking point. He appeared at Kristen Willis's house with a loaded shotgun pointed at her head. His words were ice cold. "I've already killed someone. Killing anyone else wouldn't cause me any pain." Kristen was scared, but she didn't call the police. Not yet. The final installment is due on October 30th. A Montgomery County Sheriff's deputy discovered the stolen Isuzu Rodeo at a truck stop. Michael and Jason are inside, probably thinking they're safe. They were wrong. The desperate escape attempt tells the whole story. They crashed into a police officer while trying to flee, but the officer shot out their back tire. The rodeo crashed into a nearby store, and both killers tried to run away with the shotgun. They won't get far. At the police station, the detectives read Miranda rights to Michael and began questioning him. What happened next shocked even seasoned investigators. Michael didn't just confess, he provided every gruesome detail of the triple murder. He described exactly how he hid in Sandra's laundry room with the shotgun. He described shooting her twice when she came to the door. He explained how they wrapped the body in bed sheets and threw it into Crater Lake. He led them through the lie they told Adam and Jeremy about their injured friend in the forest. Most chillingly, Michael described watching Jason shoot both boys and then steal the wallet and keys from Adam's body. He even talked about going to a nightclub afterward to celebrate. The confession was so detailed that only someone who was actually there could know these facts. In criminal investigations, detectives withhold important details from the public, known as holdback evidence, to eliminate false confessions. Michael knows exactly where to find the bodies and how they were killed. He knows details that only the killer would know. But the confession isn't the only evidence against him. Field investigators found Michael's DNA on a cigarette filter under a victim. Physical evidence doesn't lie, and it places Michael Perry at the scene of the murder. However, Michael's story began to change almost immediately after his confession. When he realized the serious trouble he was in, he began to claim that the detectives had forced him to confess. He said they physically threatened him and forced him to confess to crimes he didn't commit. Then, Michael tried a different strategy. He started blaming everything on Jason Burkett. According to Michael's new version, Jason is the real killer who manipulated him into being there. Michael claims he's just an innocent bystander caught up in Jason's violent torment. The problem with Michael's new story is that the evidence doesn't support it. Your DNA is present at the scene. The confession contains details only the killer would know. Witnesses saw him with the stolen cars and the victim's belongings. Most cruelly, Kristen Willis is willing to testify about what she witnessed that night. Michael Perry can change the story as he pleases, but the evidence against him is overwhelming. The trial began in February 2003. The prosecutor's case is devastating. They played a detailed confession tape of Michael for the jury, showing how calm he was when describing shooting an innocent woman in her own home. The DNA evidence is irrefutable. Kristen Willis's testimony paints a picture of a cold-blooded killer who feels no remorse. After only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Michael Perry guilty of capital murder. The sentencing phase took longer, 6 hours before the decision was made. Michael Perry should be executed. 8 months later, Jason Burkett's trial followed a similar pattern. He was also convicted of murder. But something different happened during the sentencing phase. The defense team called family members and a psychologist to testify about Jason's horrific childhood. They paint a picture of a young man scarred by years of abuse and neglect. Then, they did something that would save Jason's life. They brought his father, Delbert, from prison to testify. Delbert Burkett is serving a sentence for child molestation. He is the broken man who finally understands the damage he has caused his family. Standing before the jury, he pled with them to spare his son's life. "I'm a terrible father," Delbert told the jury through tears. "I failed with my son and my family." The courtroom fell silent as the professional criminal took responsibility for creating the monster his son had become. 2 women in the audience were sobbing. Jason later said this was the only time during the trial he felt emotional. "Seeing my father finally admit the pain he caused was too much to bear." The jury deliberated on Jason's sentence and returned with a verdict. Just 2 votes away, they chose life imprisonment over the death penalty. 2 murderers, the same crime, 2 different fates. Michael Perry spent nearly 9 years on death row at the Polunsky unit in Texas, never once admitting guilt. While other prisoners turned to religion or accepted responsibility for their crimes, Michael stuck to his story. He is innocent. He was set up. The other person is the real killer. The lawyer filed this appeal after appeal. They claimed the confession was coerced, you didn't have proper legal representation, and you were too young to fully understand the consequences of your actions. But the Texas courts didn't accept it. Having appealed, one was dismissed. Life in a death row cell is in existence within a 1.8 2.7 meter concrete box, 23 hours of isolation each day, 1 hour for showering and exercising in a private cage. There are no windows looking out at the sky, only the fluorescent lights that never sleep and the footsteps of the guards passing by. Some prisoners go insane after many years, others turned into living ghosts, no longer reacting to the outside world. The case caught the attention of renowned director Werner Herzog, who made the documentary Into the Abyss about Michael Perry's final days on death row. Herzog interviewed Perry multiple times, but concluded that the evidence of his guilt was overwhelming. In a desperate last-ditch effort to avoid execution, the lawyer tried a new angle, focusing on the forensic testimony about the time of Sandra's death. The coroner said Sandra died on October 26th, but Michael claimed he was in jail for a traffic violation that day. The problem is that forensic science doesn't work like a clock. When a body is submerged in water for many days, determining the exact time of death is almost impossible. Estimates are just estimates with a possible time range. The Texas Criminal Court of Appeals considered this argument and rejected it. The Supreme Court of the United States is the same. As July 1, 2010 approached, Michael's options dwindled. My foster father passed away just a few weeks ago, adding another layer of grief to his final days. But even in the face of death, Michael Perry refused to tell the truth about what he had done to the 3 innocent people. At 6:03 p.m. on July 1, 2010, Michael Perry was strapped to a medical gurney in the Huntsville death chamber. Through the window, he could see the victim's family looking at him. Foster mother Gail Perry was also there, crying for the child she had tried so hard to save. The lethal injection began flowing through his veins as Michael made his final statement. I want to start by saying to everyone involved in this cruelty that they are all forgiven by me. Even in his final moments, Michael called his own execution cruel, not the murder he committed, but the punishment he received. He's still playing the victim. Looking at his foster mother through the glass, Michael's voice choked with emotion. Mom, I love you. I'm home now, Dad. I'm home now, Dad. A tear rolled down his right cheek as the medicine took effect. He gasped 4 times. His breathing slowed and then he passed away. At 6:17 p.m., 9 minutes after the injection, Michael James Perry was pronounced dead. He is 28 years old. Lisa Stotler watched the execution with mixed emotions. When he said he forgave us, you knew justice had been served today. Today, Jason Burkett still lives in a Texas prison serving a life sentence. He will be eligible for parole on November 1st, 2041, exactly 40 years after the murder. He would be almost 60 years old if he were released. Delbert Burkett, the father whose testimony saved Jason's life, died in prison on June 6, 2022, at the age of 66. 3 families were destroyed on October 24, 2001. The Stotler family lost their mother and son. The Richardsons lost their 18-year-old son. Even Perry's family lost their adopted son due to his own choices in the justice system. All of this happened because 2 teenagers decided they deserved to drive nicer cars. How did 2 19-year-olds become triple assassins in one night? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with a broken childhood and bad choices that get worse and worse. The randomness of this crime is what makes it terrifying. Sandra Stotler, Adam Stotler, and Jeremy Richardson were not targeted for anything they did. They died because they had a nice car and unfortunately encountered 2 desperate teenagers. 3 people lost their lives because 2 young men wanted a better vehicle. A nurse saves a life every day. A 16-year-old boy was just trying to help someone in need. An 18-year-old died beside his best friend. The case also shows how childhood trauma affects people differently. Jason Burkett's horrific past earned him sympathy from the jury, sparing his life. Michael Perry's troubled but less extreme past did not save him from the death chamber. The consequences of that night are still felt today. Survivors carry pain and trauma for decades after. A community learns that evil can strike anywhere, even in the safest neighborhood.